Hello, everyone. My name is Claire. I'm a contributor for The Punks. For The Punks is a publication for music and arts that is dedicated to helping fans and creators connect, learn, and grow. Today, I'm here with Holly Turner, who is a touring photographer, graphic designer extraordinaire. Holly, I would love to hear you just give an introduction in your own words, kind of just how maybe you got into touring, you got into graphic design, what you kind of do now.
Sure. Yeah. So ever since I was in high school, I have loved music. It's been like everything to me. But the thing is, I am the worst, least musically talented person in the entire world. So I always kind of wanted to find a way that I could get involved with it without actually having any musical talent whatsoever. And I went to a vocational high school for graphic design, where like you took regular classes half the time and then half the time you chose a major and you had classes in your major. So I was taking like graphic design college classes all day, every day, every other week of the year since I was like 14. And eventually I found that photography kind of went hand in hand with that. And my dad worked at a concert venue. And so I started sneaking my camera into the concert venue because he let me do that because he was security. So no one was going to stop me. And I kind of like after would start hitting up like the smaller bands that would play and like sending them my work and being like, hi, can you please post this? I'm 14. I really like music. So yeah. And so eventually that kind of started working out. And I had a really solid graphic design skill set from the high school that I went to. And so I kind of paired the two things and I started trying to really become a one-stop shop kind of thing for artists, where I would handle all of their photography and then all of their graphic design stuff too. So they didn't really have to go anywhere to work with other creatives. And like every time they needed something, I was just like, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I just became able to handle everything creatively for people. And that's been something that's really fun because I like having a hand in every single visual thing that an artist comes out with. I think that that's really cool. And yeah, has allowed me to have a lot of clients that I'm really excited about. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That was my next question was going to be, you do a lot more than just photography, creating album artwork, social media materials, video content, just to name a few. And was that something that was like a natural progression to you to just say, I want to do all these things and help these artists?
I think it was just kind of something that it's just so easy to connect everything. Because especially with the artists that I was working with first, they were like a lot smaller, like local bands, people that didn't really have like a very huge budget for stuff or have much resources in terms of creative stuff. So they would always ask like, oh, hey, like, do you know anyone who could do this? And there was kind of this thing where when I was 15, I thought like, oh God, if they find someone else, they're just going to work with someone else. And then they're going to ditch me and I'm not going to have any work and blah, blah, blah. So I just, every single time I didn't know how to do something, I was like, well, I'll just figure it out and say I can do it. And they don't have to know that I didn't know how to do it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of like snowballs into being able to do everything. And now I kind of still have that same mentality of like, if I don't know how to do something, but they ask for it and I have I have the whole Adobe Creative Suite. So it's like, if I can figure out how to do it in any program, I'll just kind of say yes and figure it out as I go along.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's really easy for them to all kind of meld together. And especially with touring and stuff, the first tour that I went on, because video is so prevalent now, and even was in 2015 when I went on my first tour, the band was just kind of like, hey, like we want to do video and stuff too. Do you do that? And I was like, I guess I do now. I'm going to download iMovie and like see what happens. And like, yeah, just kind of like worked my way up from there into doing it. And then like knowing how to do video just kind of goes hand in hand with knowing how to do motion graphics and that kind of thing. So once I kind of got the layout of the program, I was like, oh, I can offer motion graphics now. And so, yeah, I guess it all just kind of snowballs.
I think that's so great though, because even if like, let's say you have one band that doesn't want really a photographer, maybe they have that already. They have someone that they typically work with, but now they want video and they can go to you for that. Whereas initially that's not something that you necessarily offered. So it seems like you've created a lot of opportunities for yourself in that.
Exactly. And I have a couple photo friends that like exactly what you said, like they do photo for a band and they are like the best at that. But then if that band hits them up and needs a video thing, they'll recommend me because they can't do it. And, you know, yeah. So I think it, like I said, it's fun because like when I can do everything for a band, it's really cool to just, you know, have my hand in everything. But at the same time, it also helps to get a variety of jobs and also helps to not get sick of stuff, because I feel like my mind is kind of all over the place creatively all the time. And I feel like if I was just doing graphic design or just doing photo, even though it's creative, I feel like it would start to feel very like droning on and on of the same kind of thing. So it's cool to be able to spice it up and do a little bit of everything, because it keeps my day-to-day a lot more, I don't know, spicy.
And learning new things too all the time, which is always great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you started off in a venue, just taking photos there of whatever bands were playing. And then you eventually went on tour. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, and maybe the process of how you went from just shooting in one place, maybe where you lived, onto the road?
Sure. Yes. So I was able to build a really great portfolio because my dad was head of security at the Xfinity Center, which is the amphitheater in Massachusetts, which is where I'm from, for like 10, 15 years. I obviously wasn't shooting the whole time because I was like 10 for some of that, but he worked there for so long, so he would sneak me into a huge venue like that with my camera because I didn't have to go through security. Like he'd just walk me right in, or if I did and they were like, oh, security has to confiscate your camera, the person confiscating my camera is just my dad. So yeah, so I was able to build a really great portfolio. I was like 16 doing like a portfolio live shoot of like Matchbox 20. So I was able to do that. And then I went to college in New York City. And yeah, I had like a lot of cool portfolio stuff with a lot of varied artists. I went to college, and college was just like not it for me. I went to a very great school, but they were very fine art photo oriented. And which is great if that's what you want to do and you want to have your photo in galleries, like cool, but that's not my thing. And I was kind of there realizing that I wasn't going to acquire the career that I wanted while doing that. And I was like, well, I'm in New York City and I'm paying a lot of money to be here. So what is the best thing that I can do? And I decided to just cold email every single band that had a tour stop at every single venue in New York City. And I didn't care like how big it was. Like I emailed some openers for tours at like Madison Square Garden, and I emailed like, you know, smaller venues out here, and just every single email I could find, I emailed every single one. And one band, they're this like regional touring pop punk band called This Is All Now. They had played a couple shows in Boston because they were regional touring. So they had met me a time or two when I was younger. They saw my email, and my email was, when I look back and think about it, it's so funny because it was so desperate. It was like, hi, like my name's Holly. I'm thinking of dropping out of college because I really want to tour. Please take me on tour so I can drop out of college. And that was all. And here's a link to my portfolio. And that's all it said. But yeah, they had like just recognized my name from going to shows when I had been in high school. So they were like, yeah, like we'll give you a chance. Come out on the road with us. And that tour, it wasn't a full US, but it was like half the country. And they didn't pay me anything, but I just went on that tour with them, and I reached out to, there were local support acts on every single date of that tour. So I reached out to every local support act while I was on that tour, kind of saying the same thing, like, hi, I'm Holly, I want a tour. Please let me take photos of your band while I'm on this tour. And so I did. And I've actually, up until the end of the stuff coming back after the pandemic, every single gig I got for 5 years completely stemmed out of me going on that tour and reaching out to people, whether it was like an artist that I cold emailed on that first tour, like thinking that I did a really good job and like wanting to work with me, or there were a couple times like that band hired me back and like a different band that was opening for them or playing with them just like saw me running around the venue and trying really hard, and just based off of that, there was one band that hired me to go on tour like a month later, which was really sick. So yeah, just out of that one, I just was going pretty nonstop until the pandemic happened. So yeah,
it's crazy how your network can work for you like that, you know, like how you just find that one in and it can bring you so many opportunities. Speaking of that, do you have any advice to give to anyone out there who's looking to go on tour someday? Because I think that's such a big goal for so many people that are looking at the music industry, especially people that are doing it as a photographer. I feel like that's a huge way that people get onto tours nowadays. So if you could just speak to that a little bit, any advice?
Yeah, I think it's crazy because my boyfriend does audio engineering stuff. And I feel like photography is the only one where it's really hard to like, you almost have to prove yourself before you get on the road. Like with audio stuff, I think he's had a lot easier time. Like people just know him and they're like, oh, like you can come, whatever, like it's fine. But photography is really hard to break into. And I think the thing that I found to be most helpful was honestly just adding people on Facebook. And that's weird because Facebook is kind of dead right now. But a lot of people will post like that they're looking for recommendations on there. And I, over the years, like you said, built a really wide network of people just from people that I met on tour, but it doesn't have to be on tour. It can just be like strike up a conversation with someone at a show, find them on Facebook and add them after, and they just probably don't care because Facebook's dead and they'll just click add. And after the pandemic, all the bands that I had worked with pre-pandemic had broken up. So I was super worried about like how I was gonna kind of get back on the road after that. And I just have so many people that I've added on Facebook who don't even know who I am, but work in the music industry. And I've like maybe met them once and added them that post like, oh, looking for a tour photographer. And I can reply because I have that Facebook friend connection with them, be like, oh, hey, like I'll go. And I think a lot of touring is like, you have to have somebody like vouching for you kind of, but if you're Facebook friends with them, I think it kind of subconsciously tricks the person into thinking that they know you, even if they don't actually know you in person. And yeah, I was able to slide in, not post, but like post pandemic that way with a lot of artists. And yeah, the kind of network that I have now is completely new people from what I had at the beginning of the pandemic. And that's kind of how I rebuilt it, is just by commenting on that and hitting people up and like sliding into their DMs. So I think that can do a lot more than you would think it would.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the amount of like work I've gotten off of Facebook is a little bit absurd for how like dead Facebook is. Because I was like, oh, like, it sounds kind of weird, but yeah, I got this job through Facebook. Like it does kind of serve the industry that way. Interestingly enough. So like any job, touring can be really rewarding and fun, but it definitely takes a toll. I'm curious what kind of pros and cons you've noticed in your career.
So I think so when I first started my career, when I dropped out of college, I actually, I dropped out of college, but I could still swipe into the dorm. And I kind of just like crashed in the dorm lobby in New York City because I didn't want to leave New York City for like 6 months. And so I started off very like, my standards were very low in terms of comfort. So the first tour I did when I had like, you know, a bed to sleep on every night because they got hotels and stuff, I was like living. But I think now that I have an apartment that I pay for, which is very nice, it's really easy to get homesick and kind of feel unsettled when you're like sleeping on a van bench every night. And like, I have a boyfriend who I love very much. And like, it's hard to be away from him and that kind of stuff, because I have a lot of things at home now that I miss, that I like going back to. But traveling is also one of my favorite things ever. If I could, and I had an infinite amount of money, I would just, you know, flop around the whole world forever. So it's kind of a pro and a con at the same time to be able to go so many places and be away from home, but then, you know, have like a month-long break in between where I can just be a total homebody and never leave my apartment. But then after that, just peace out and go see the whole country for a little while, you know. It's also very hard to eat healthy on the road. I'm someone who really prioritizes like, don't eat a lot of carbs, eat a lot of protein, whatever. But that just all goes to hell when I'm living out of a van. Everyone around me is just eating Doritos all day. So that can be very hard. And I kind of try and go for like runs around the venue to compensate for that,
Mhm.
but still, I usually have a really hard time with that.
Yeah, that's funny. I agree with that. I think that's such like, I mean, just having like crafty or anything like that, any kind of
Yeah.
situation, and it's always just like the worst junk food. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I guess I have to eat. Like, I guess I'm eating French fries for dinner tonight, or a bag of Doritos, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I have this really bad luck where every tour I go on, someone on the tour package is allergic to nuts. So I can't even bring like almonds or like protein bars or anything like that, because all of that, anything healthy that doesn't go bad is nut based. So it's like, well, yeah, Doritos and candy bars it is, I guess.
So I know you said that you're kind of rebuilding your network and you've had some gigs post, as much as we can call it, post pandemic. What are you working on right now?
So I'm about to go on tour with The Dangerous Summer and Corey Wells. I leave for that, I think, a week from today, which I'm really excited about. I just got a job working with, it's like a freelance kind of situation, but working with Headcount. They like partner with tours, getting people registered to vote, and things like that. So that's been really cool because it's allowed me to do graphic design for a higher level of artists than I usually do. My graphic design clients are usually like kind of in the alternative rock space, but a lot of like smaller, like just breaking into national touring or regionally touring sized bands. And I actually, through working with Headcount, just made a video for Ariana Grande that went on her Instagram, which has been really cool. So just getting that kind of like different experience of working with high profile artists, and like this is so nerdy, but it's so cool to, when I see like the PSD and all of the like assets and documents of bigger artists like that, and just to pick apart what their graphic designer that created the whole branding did, is like, I think that's the funnest thing.
That's so
like,
cool.
So yeah, so that's been really cool. And then just doing a couple like album artwork photo shoots with bands here and there in between that. But I think the Headcount thing is freelance, but they're like a really cool company to be working with. So I'm putting a lot into working with them right now, and making sure I kind of want to be like a really solid person for them to come to this stuff, because it's a sick opportunity. So
that's a great opportunity. That is very cool. So you talked a little bit about it, but you said you're about to go on tour and you're working with Headcount now. Do you have any more plans for the future, maybe even more distant future, that you could talk about as well?
Yeah, I can't say what it is yet, because it's technically not confirmed, but I was on the first tour I've ever been hired for, where I purchased tickets to the tour and then found out that I was hired to be on it. It was supposed to be next month, but it got postponed. So they're working out the new dates of it, but I'm still going to be on it when it happens. So I'm really, really, really excited about that one.
That's exciting. I can't wait to find out what that one is. That's going to be really great. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for answering all of these. I think you gave some really solid advice and some really solid experience, especially to people looking to get out on the road as a tour photographer. So do you want to plug where they can find your work, where the people can find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is everything is Holly Turner Photo, which is funny because it's like it sounds a little limiting when you look at what I do, but there's literally 4,000 Holly Turners in the world, so it was hard to get handles for everything. But Holly Turner Photo is all my stuff. So my Instagram is Holly Turner Photo. My website is hollyturnerphoto.com. My Facebook is like facebook.com/Holly Turner Photo, even though that's dead. And then my Twitter is itty bitty Holly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really, really enjoyed this interview. Definitely go check out Holly's work.